What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm bringing you some super juicy lore from the Fallout series all about people with paranormal powers. If you didn't know that people with these powers are canon in the Fallout universe, well now you know, and there's actually quite a lot of them. They've all got their superpowers in different ways, each with their own origin story and some far more impressive and detailed than others. Introducing the Psykers. A Psyker is a word used to describe anyone in the Fallout universe who possesses any paranormal powers. Some people can read or control the minds of others with their own, some can see the future, while others can even use their abilities to control fire, electricity, and light. Psykers can be very dangerous, but some choose to live normal lives regardless of their abilities. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through many Psykers from the Fallout universe, exploring who they are and what they're capable of. There's more than one suspected Psyker in every Fallout game, however, often it's hard to know who truly is a Psyker and who isn't. Starting off, we have the most notorious Psyker, the Master himself. The Master, previously known as Richard Gray, was a man who went on an expedition into the Mariposa military base in 2102. The US government had been experimenting with the forced evolutionary virus at this base, and when Richard and his team entered, they were wiped out by mutated creatures and the defense systems in the base. Richard, however, was grabbed by a robotic arm and dunked into a vat of FEV, where he was kept floating for about a month. This turned him into the Master, a disgusting blob-like being that eventually expanded its biological mass by absorbing other things, like people, but also creatures, into itself. It also merged itself to computer equipment from the base. The Master ended up gaining extremely powerful psionic abilities. He could project incredibly vivid hallucinations into the minds of his targets, breaking them down with ease. Unless, of course, they had some form of mental protection. The Master then proceeded to use his powers to create and control the supermutants, leading them in a movement called the Unity. The aim of this was to turn every human possible into a supermutant, unifying all of humanity together with the ability to better cope in a post-nuclear wasteland. It's the story of a man doing evil things in the name of what he perceives to be good, but as you can see, this Psyker used his abilities for some seriously ambitious and crazy purposes. In the original Fallout, in which the Master is involved, you can discover 4 more Psykers in the Master's lair. These individuals are Wiggum, Lucy, Moore, and Gideon. They gained their powers from the Master himself, who could apparently bring forth psychic abilities in particular humans after they had been injected with FEV straight into their brain. Most of the time, the people receiving this treatment would go crazy and they would often die, but very rarely there was a success, as shown through these 4 individuals. Wiggum was mainly electrokinetic, Moore was pyrokinetic, and Lucy was telekinetic and slightly photokinetic. Gideon was receiving telepathic and needed the psychic nullifier to block incoming thoughts due to the fact that he couldn't actually control his power properly. He also had minor photokinetic abilities. Now, for those who don't want to think too hard, generally speaking, pyrokinetic involves manipulating fire, electrokinetic means messing with electricity, and photokinetic means controlling light. Also in the original Fallout, there's a man named Chuck who appears to have some sort of fortune-telling ability, marking locations on the map for you by doing tarot card readings. But moving on to Fallout 2, there are 3 individuals or things I want to talk about. The first is King Ra'at. This thing is a massive albino mole rat who has developed high levels of intelligence. You can see this physically as he has an enlarged brain case. You can find him in the rat-filled caves beneath Klamath, and he has the mental power of being able to control an army of smaller mutant rodents. Obviously, not being human, it's not nearly as impressive, and if you wanted to argue that maybe he isn't a Psyker, then that's fine by me, but I still think it stands as something cool to mention. In fact, I'm going to be telling you guys all about the cool little things like this, but let's move on to Hakunen, a very strange village shaman who lives in Arroyo. Hakunen has the ability to contact the player through a sequence of dreams, meaning that while this isn't the most impressive power, it is definitely one that exists. He will appear in multiple visions, telling you about the Enclave attack and the dying village. Being a shaman, he has a variety of other skills, such as being able to create healing powder from various ingredients, but to me at least, his Psyker abilities are definitely the coolest ones. Alongside all of this, he also talks in a kind of riddle, making his weird outfit, especially his headpiece, incredibly fitting. And finally, from Fallout 2, we have another character who is believed to be a Psyker, although I'm not 100% sure. His name is Melchior the Magnificent, and he was once a magician, but was kidnapped by the Enclave and taken to the Mariposa base, eventually turning into a super mutant. He definitely became a super mutant, and now instead of pulling rabbits out of a hat, he summons dangerous creatures such as deathclaws, fire geckos, and mole rats. He's a tough boss to defeat, and it seems as though his old magical trickery has kind of turned into reality. I mean, he walks up to pools of FEV and spawns monsters from said pools. He also used his talents to secretly hide stashes of weapons and ammunition from his Enclave overseers to prepare for for the uprising against them. He certainly is a fascinating character, but take my advice when I say to approach him with caution. And that brings us to Fallout 3, which I'm sure much more of you are familiar with. Let's start with a fan favorite, the notorious Antagonizeer. Is the Antagonizeer a Psyker? Well, many people believe so. The Antagonizeer has the ability to control giant ants, using them in battle to terrorize towns and attempting to defeat her nemesis, the Mechanist. The Antagonizeer saw her parents die when their caravan was attacked by giant ants. She had always been obsessed with Grognak the Barbarian comics, and now completely traumatized, she started to lose herself in the stories. She eventually took on the mantle of the Antagonizeer and seeks to destroy mankind like her comic book counterpart intends to. The Antagonizeer has human flesh in her inventory, which some people say hints at the idea of her being a cannibal. But what if she's actually just using human flesh to tame the giant ants, making them follow her? Then again, if she couldn't control them with her mind, why wouldn't they just eat her and the flesh she carries? All we know for certain is that the Antagonizeer seems to have some kind of psychic control of giant ants, and very well could be a Psyker. Next, we have Bloomseer Poplar. She's an old lady in the location of Oasis, and it is claimed she has fortune-telling abilities. These claims are backed up by the fact that she can look into the future and consistently sees quests you have yet to complete. Her powers of premonition have certainly amazed the other villagers. And then we have none other than Professor Calvert, the main antagonist from the Point Lookout DLC, a classic brain-in-the-jar villain. Before the Great War, Professor Calvert was a member of the very prestigious Calvert family and was an expert when it came to cognitive robotics. He was so super smart that he actually figured out how to extract his own brain from his body and then somehow preserve it inside the underground lab using experimental robo-brain technology. Over the next 200 years, Calvert was actually able to develop an ability to communicate with people telepathically over a long range. He plans to achieve psychic domination over the Maryland area and even has a cult of tribals worshipping him. He uses them as tools to do his bidding, and he can also control robots within the underground lab he resides in. His psychic powers are quite strong, however they are confined to the area around him due to a psychic jamming device. By contacting the mind of the player, he learns that this device is going to completely block his power if the plan to install it on top of the Ferris wheel is carried out. He asks you to destroy it instead of install it. Will you help this Psyker? And finally, from Fallout 3, we have a returning character who I haven't mentioned yet, Harold. Harold was born 5 years before the Great War, but was locked in Vault 29 for protection. He was one of the many who went to explore the Mariposa military base only to become mutated by the FEV. Harold seemingly just turned into a normal ghoul, but years later he found a tree to begin growing out of his head. Now he is basically completely melded into the tree. In 2277 you can see his face in the tree growing in the Oasis Grove, and now he has the ability to see through all trees which descend from this, but only if he concentrates really hard. Whether or not this makes Harold a Psyker is up to you, but if we're defining it by having paranormal powers, then I'd say this counts. Harold has a very loopy, humorous personality, and has encountered many distinguished characters like Richard Grey, the Master, the Lone Wanderer, the Initiate, the Chosen One, and the Vault Dweller. And now we dive into the Mojave for our favorite Fallout game, Fallout New Vegas. In Fallout New Vegas, there are two main examples of Psyker powers. One is very obvious and involves a young boy simply known as the Forecaster. He's an orphan who lives under the bridge at 188 Trading Post. He wears a psychic nullifier on his head, which he says is his medicine, as it stops him from thinking too hard during the day. This causes his thoughts to get bottled up and rush out as soon as he takes the headpiece off. He simply uses the word thinking to describe his psychic fortune-telling process, and using his powers causes him to have intense migraines. Finding him makes for a very memorable encounter, and he's able to use just a few sentences to sum up all of the faction paradigms and themes in the game. Another example of psychic activity in Fallout New Vegas occurs in Black Rock Cave, home of the unique weapon, the Paladin Toaster. The psychic activity in the cave comes in the form of the Nightkin inside. If you have completed the quest Crazy by repairing Rhonda, there's a chance they won't attack you. They might attack you, but there's a good chance that they won't. Now, the Nightkins say that voices speak to them, and they say things that will happen in the main storyline. They also say comments about your companions that they definitely should not know. For example, here's a comment about Boone in reference to the Great Khans and the Bitter Springs incident. Silent Man knows more about the Great Khans than what he says. Their dialogue obviously changes depending on what companion you bring and where you are in the main story, but it's all very weird and smells of Psyker activity to me. Finally, we come to the latest Fallout game, Fallout 4. There are two main examples in the game that I know of in which Psyker powers are demonstrated. The first involves Mama Murphy. Now, many people believe that she is a Psyker, however, others say she's just an old drugged up woman talking nonsense. I'm more inclined to believe she is a Psyker based on the information she gives you. It is way too accurate to just be coincidence. Mama Murphy comes from Quincy and protects the people people she cares about by using chems to harness her psychic abilities, which she calls the sight. The reason I say that this supernatural power is likely real is due to the fact that all of her visions actually come true. For example, Mama Murphy gives you exact shutdown codes for a Corsa. She says, Z247, initialize factory reset, authorization code Zeta53 Kilo. You then get to use these exact codes, you say this exact phrase to achieve exactly what she saw. She also tells you that when you meet the fat man and the angry woman, obviously referring to Skinny Malone, to tell them to remember the quarry and Lily June on the rocks, adding that they'll let you and your friend, aka Nick Valentine, pass. Furthermore, she foresees you being attacked by a death claw which comes out from underground, and she also says she saw you exit cryo sleep as clear as day. She also has a vision of the faction ending you choose, which she could easily know nothing about. If you find a list of her quotes online, they're also obviously crafted to show that her psychic ability is very real. In my books, she's a psyker, but I'd love to know what you think and what evidence you have to suggest otherwise. And finally, we have the last example from Fallout 4 in this video, and that is the whole shebang with Lorenzo Cabot. Lorenzo was born all the way back in 1835, making him incredibly old. When he was 59 years old, Lorenzo went on an expedition in Arabia, searching for the lost city of Ubar, if that's how you pronounce it. Lorenzo eventually found what he believed to be this city, and along with it, an alien artifact which he could use to gain supernatural abilities. He buried the city and planned to return back at a later date to explore more. However, he first returned to Boston. Sadly for him, using the artifact drove him crazy, and he was imprisoned at the Parsons State Insane Asylum for life by his own family in order to protect him and them. His son Jack studied this artifact and proceeded to develop a serum from his father's blood to allow the family to live for more than 400 years. This artifact allows Lorenzo to have an unusually long lifespan, to have ridiculously high health points, damage resistance equivalent to a full suit of combat armor, and the offensive capabilities to unleash bursts of energy which push targets flying away. They can also deflect grenades, so watch out for that if you choose to fight him. If you free Lorenzo, he will reward you with an unlimited supply of his blood serum and will kill his family for their decisions. And that concludes this video. Oh, and there's also the Beast Lords from Fallout Tactics, who can use psychic powers to control animals, but that's not necessarily canon. But tell me what you think in the comments below about absolutely anything discussed in this video, and check out the description for our social media links. If you want to support the channel, please hit the like button, and if you're feeling super generous, our Patreon is also linked in the description. My name is Michael, this was Fallout Psykers Lore. I hope you enjoyed these characters, and I look forward to nerding out with you all again very soon.